Yeah.
because she goes in Clackamas. So I'm like, of
Mhm.
course,
Yeah.
I'm like required to go on 205, like, at least 3 times a week now. So yeah, so I don't
Yeah.
know, I got to switch it to the west side or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh well.
That's
Oh
going to
well.
change a lot of people's. You have a good point though. That makes it. Does make a big determination if you have to pay to go the toll over back and forth.
Yeah.
How much is the toll gonna be though? I mean, isn't it just gonna be like, I don't know, pretty
Well, I
cheap?
well, I think the
I
toll
heard
was
as high
supposed
as
to be.
$8.
Yeah.
What?
Well, from what I heard, originally envisioned it was supposed to be like a sliding toll based upon actual traffic, levels.
Congestion pricing, yeah.
Yeah, congestion pricing. Whereas the ODOT wants a more of a flat rate, sort of set it high and get the income. So I think there's a disconnect between what the legislator wants and what ODOT wants. So I don't know.
Whole
Okay.
logic falls apart if we don't do congestion pricing, it sounds like. Well, the logic for the fact that it'll lessen the traffic at peak times. I guess it doesn't lessen the fact ODOT wants more money.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to
Yeah.
hurt Willamette no matter what. We're going to get hit with people avoiding the freeway. And
Yeah.
we already get it already.
Yeah.
It's going to be even worse.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That's why we need to reduce all the speed limits in Westland to 20 miles an hour.
I think we should put a toll on Fields Bridge and put a toll on the bridge over by Heath Mountain. So that way they'll just avoid going on those anyway. And then
I
make
like
it
it.
free for all residents. Residents get a pass. Residents get a pass. And then the non-residents have to pay the toll.
I like it.
Two can play that game, right? They're going to put a toll over there. We put a toll on our bridge. So I'll collect it. I'll send out there with just
Ah.
The Toll Wars,
right.
2024.
It'll be on AMC now. We'll have the Toll War. Okay, so I think we're all here. We want to we're gonna call this to order at 6:04. Or Lynn, I should try to give you a warning that you won't be recording. Okay, so we can call this meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. And do we need to do a roll call then?
I think that'd be handy. So let's see.
You want to do the roll? You want to do a roll call, or John? I guess you could do the roll call.
Yeah, let me pull it up here really fast. Okay. So Danny?
Here.
Yep. Scott?
Present.
Yep. Christopher Owen's not making it tonight. John?
Present.
David?
Here.
And then Tom is not making it as well. So it's just us tonight. And then since on the topic of roll call, I was going to save this for the end, but James Manning has been appointed by council. So he will be filling the vacant seats starting next month. So he's not absent tonight. He just starts in January. So great.
Glad to see him on board.
Yeah.
Our item on our agenda, excuse me, is public comment related to land use items not on the agenda. And I think we had one request, if I'm not mistaken.
So Shannon, are you present?
I am, but I was on the agenda, I believe, because I'm going to comment on the Chapter 58 stuff.
Well, I'll put this up to the chair here, but it's not really like a public hearing format tonight. So I think tonight's more about the board discussing it amongst themselves, but it might be a good time to introduce it, your thoughts and comments. So.
Okay. So I just had, hold on, let me pull it up. I just got done driving.
And Shannon, just for the record, can you give an introduction of who you are and all, just for the record?
Shannon Knight, and live in Westman. All right, so so I'm mostly Chapter 58 because I'm a business owner, care about stuff that happens in the business district. in the I like most of the stuff that you're doing because it is making it easier. But a couple of more things that I thought could be even better. So first in the design exception procedures, I mean, I like that you have that exception, but it still says it's 1980 to 1915, so I'm still worried about those bungalows if someone comes in and is really adamant about protesting the code because it says those years. I think going to give people a reason to tear down one of those bungalows, and so I was just trying to see if they could extend those years long, maybe not even have the years, just have it that it has historical significance or something like to that effect for that. And then, oh, and the gas stations would apply to that too. For 58-50, we have talked about this for a long time, just through EDC, and that, and when I used to be on Main Street, used to be the president of Main Street. So there's always, it says commercial, but I would really prefer if it said retail or retail preference or something like that, because we get all these offices on the lower floor, and it doesn't create a very shoppable, walkable downtown. So I would like to see, like, encourage whatever we can do to encourage retail on that bottom floor. And then as far as the, I don't remember what chapter that one was, but changing the paint, repainting requires review still. I know in other cities we've researched too, when the lavender blue building was that ugly color, and everybody wanted to paint it, but it was an extra $1,000 just for the review process, for having to go in front of you to change the color. If you guys had a standard palette of colors, like it, you know, say it was Benjamin Moore, like they usually, all those paint companies have like a historic set of colors or something. If it was one of those colors, it didn't require review. But if they wanted to paint another color, it wouldn't require review, just to make it easier for people to not have to pay that extra $1,000 just to have, you know, pick a paint color, to have you say rubber stamp a paint color. So that is all. Those are all my thoughts.
Thank you for sharing those. And Shannon, I'll give you a heads up that this chapter 58 is still, I think myself and some of the other board members have some bigger changes we want to make that are going to take a lot more work to clean up and to add some other provisions to make it easier and make it a little bit more well defined, so it's easier for business owners to work with it. But what our plan is, what we talked about in our last meeting, was to just do some cleanup on the code first. Basically, you know, there's some references to things that don't exist, like the color palette, which doesn't even exist. We said, you know, there's a reference in there that says to use the City Hall color palette, which does not exist at this point, and just kind of clean up some of that language for the first round, and then do a deeper dive of fixing some of these other bigger questions, so we can do things like protecting the bungalows a little bit easier and make it so it's a little bit clearer, because I know there's just some areas of vagueness in the code, which makes it harder for businesses to define them. But definitely heard your comments, and I agree with them. I think the board actually does too, from what our conversations have been to date. We're kind of in the same direction of what you're exactly thinking, is some of those paint color issues and things like that just have been kind of not well defined. And you know, there's a lot of, the more you dive into chapter 58, I know we've had our discussions, a lot of our work meetings, is that there's some things in there just, they don't make sense. The code doesn't exactly, you know, it's vague, it's kind of subjective, and that's not really what code should be. It should be a little bit easier to understand and a little clearer for developers and business owners to be able to make it work. But thank you for your comments. And John, if you have those noted, that would be great to put those into our notes for the record from when we go back to 58 later on, when we diving into it.
Yes, thank you. I have that noted, and we also have all this recorded as well for future reference.
Perfect. Any other public comments, John, that I missed or anything? Oh, yeah, Scott, you have one?
I just wanted to take a second to thank Shannon for chiming in. And this last week, the Historic Review Board did a walkthrough of the district there, and we did spend a good amount of time discussing the bungalows and of course, they have a great aesthetic appeal for that area, and we know a lot of people would just like to have that area become, a very well-developed business district. But we are concerned about the preservation of the bungalows, as well as making sure that it is still an inviting area for retail as well as commercial businesses. So definitely appreciate all your statements there. These are all things that we've been concerned about, and so we're definitely in tune with a lot of what you're saying there. So we definitely appreciate the comments.
And Shannon, I invite you, as we make revisions and begin to release those out for comment, we welcome your reaction to it and any other comments you have as that becomes public. Hopefully, we've only been working on this for 3 years, so hopefully someday we'll actually get it approved and out.
That's why I know. I'm like, all of the code needs work, but this specifically, we've run into issues with people wanting to come in town and build and stuff like that. And I just remembered one more thing, because we had it come up. I don't know, Danny, you might have been around. I don't know if everyone else was around for it, but there was the application for that piece of property between the bungalows there.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had an issue with that zero lot setback, which would have put it, which makes sense. I mean, understand the 0 foot setback is great for shopping and retail and everything like that, but then it would have been a disproportionately, 0 setback there with the other one setback. So if it, I think there was something in there that you said that matches the,
Yep.
not have the 0 foot setback if it matched the buildings around it. Because I know that was a big issue that they wanted it, or the community wanted, the WNA wanted it to be further back so it matched the setback of the bungalows, but the 0 foot setback was in the code, and so that became a huge problem.
Yeah, Shannon, just so you know, that project may return in the future. So the even though it expired, the current property owners are thinking about coming back, but that's good to note for next time. So
okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hoping to address that. That was when we were walking. That was one of our points, and it helps to be able to. Our walking tour last week really helped to illustrate, to see how that's going to affect the neighborhood of having one property right up at the sidewalk with the 2 others set far back. I think it helped the board to understand that concept better, because on the map it looks different than when you're actually looking at it, realizing, oh, you're going to be in the shadow of these buildings. And yeah.
Well, I mean, I think just having flexible, I mean, I know the code is vague sometimes, but having it flexible too, because that was one where the neighborhood really was protesting. And I worked with the owners of that property, because the neighborhood was attacking them. And I know all of it was code related and not their fault. They were trying their best to do the best building they could, but the neighborhood hated it so much. And so they were getting yelled at and screamed at and stuff at neighborhood meetings. And she had cancer and she was like crying the whole time. And so I felt really bad for them. So I helped them on that. But, it's just if the code could be more flexible to allow what the neighborhood wants to see, versus being strict to those codes.
And I also thought, Shannon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the business owners they were willing to make changes, but they were their hands tied because of the code too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted to make changes. They wanted to have parking in the back, but the code wouldn't allow the parking because of the setback on the rear, and so yeah, it was just a mess. But I felt bad for them, so yeah, I'm glad they're going to come back, because I felt bad that they spent all that money doing that design and then didn't end up doing it.
And I think it's part of the board's, again, conversation where I think we're doing in strategic stages is we're going to first get it cleaned up. So you will not see those changes on the first draft through, unfortunately, just because I think that's going to take a lot more research and then some brainstorming and some wordsmithing to make it so it can have that flexibility, so we can do those kind of things, but also so it's not being taken advantage of in other situations. So it's going to take a little bit of work. So I think the strategy we've come up with is let's get this all passed since we've done all this work to clean it up, and then we'll go back through and try to make it better.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Shannon. You're also welcome to stay if you want for the rest of the meeting, since we'll be talking about the code.
I'll listen to it later. I'm like in the middle of shopping right now. So.
Good luck. So.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
All right, our next item on the agenda I have is approval of draft minute notes from the November 16th meeting. I had just a couple of little tiny typos or word changes on there. John and Lynn, on number 8, work session historic review court update. Just a typo on the 4th paragraph, where it says in the second sentence, board members expressed concern about only 3 or the 8 bungalows. I think it was meant to be 3 of the 8 bungalows. Again, that's number 8 work session. It's the 4th paragraph, John. The one that starts with the issues related to the period design. Yep. The second sentence, board members expressed concern about only 3.
Oh, I see. Yes. Yeah.
That tiny thing, but and then also on number 9, item number 9, noted John Klatt. It's Klatt, Klatt is John's last name. So if we can correct that on both of those, again, Klatt, Klatt, not clap.
Oh yeah. So
if we can track both of those, but
must have been auto spell or something. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't sure how his name was spelled.
Yep. Klatt, Klatt.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
If we give him a plaque, we should definitely get his name right on it.
Oh.
That is all I had on the draft meeting notes. Are we looking for a motion for approval? Unless anyone else had any notes.
Make a motion to approve
Scott
with the changes that Denny suggested.
Second.
I didn't know if that was John or David.
That was, or maybe both of us.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 That was unanimous. We approve the board notes from last time. Next is our work session historic code review update. John, I'll hand this over to you because I'm not sure you want to just go over. I only got in the packet chapter 25. That's all we were doing, right?
Pretty much chapter 25. There is a little bit in 58 as well, though, as a follow-up to the walking tour. So I can just go over the 4 items that I discussed in the memorandum. So sort of in a little out of order here in terms of chapter numbers here, but there were kind of 4 items to talk about tonight. One is to sort of follow up on the walking tour of downtown, where HRB and myself walked around taking a look at the primarily the canopies, but also the building setbacks, the existing building setbacks and potential future building setbacks. And specifically, the awning standards have to be updated because of changes to the streetscape. So I think it would be helpful if the HRB could provide a little more direction or any thoughts and concerns about the current proposed language. Second item is updates to the demolition by neglect language based on inputs to the by the city attorney. And then I actually added 2 clarifications regarding changes to existing windows in historic structures based upon some recent experience with an application and identifying some potential ambiguities in the code. And since we're working to remove some of those, I thought it might be a good time to drop those in for the HRB's consideration tonight. So if it's okay with you, maybe we can hold off on the awnings until the end, since that may be a little more free form. So I think I'll start out looking at chapter 25.130, which is demolition by neglect. I know a few of you had wanted the city attorney to take a look at this. And Ed took a look at this and very quickly suggested some revised language here. He had 2 comments. One is that he thought the language was too passive. He thought much more assertive language would have been helpful, or will be helpful in the future. And then he disliked the use of the word promote, because he says that's a really overly broad and ambiguous term, and could also veer into free speech issues. So if someone really wanted to push that. So his recommendation was to shorten it up a little bit and just say, replace the current language that says if one or more of the following is promoted, allowed to occur, or exist. He would rewrite that to say, demolition, the criteria for determination of demolition by neglect is any action or inaction that results in one or more of the following conditions in an historic resource constitutes demolition by neglect. And so sort of encompassing an affirmative statement, an affirmative action or a lack of action, would constitute this. So that was generally his thoughts. He thought it would make it a little more enforceable. Otherwise, he didn't have any issues with the remainder of the language. It was just more of the overall preamble. And then I also spoke to the preservation planner for the city of Salem as well about demolition by neglect. They've had a few issues of that over the years. And she's actually worked for Westland. She actually worked on some of our historic resource inventories. So linking on her name really fast, Kimberly Fitzgerald. So you'll see her name on the resource inventories. But I asked her about the adequacy of the error code, and she said it was fine. She said the issue is much more of making sure you have a strong enforcement arm out there, making sure departments are talking to each other, that planning and building are coordinating, and that inspections are written, additional inspections are written into the construction process, to where like she would go out there or someone else would go out there to really verify that the scope of the work is really keeping to the application, that someone's not removing all the siding even when they should just be having more of a targeted approach. So she thought it was less of a code issue and more of an overall organizational sort of procedural issue for City of Salem. That said, though, she said there was one example. I didn't get too many details, but there were a few examples where they've been able to identify an issue early on and convert a building that's almost gone into more of a showpiece. So I believe that there's an ODOT property that they're working with right now. So based upon that conversation, I don't have anything more than what's in front of you tonight. But I think in terms of this, I think one thing to be mindful of, since I know this is a concern by the board, is to really be careful about conditions of approval. And so maybe if there's a property, where there is a concern that for perhaps improper shoring up, or perhaps an overly aggressive contractor, conditions of approval could be written in to really rein in some of the possibilities there. So, and that's something that can be worked out on a case-by-case basis. So that may be a better solution than putting something in code that may or may not be seen. So that's kind of what I heard. she and I spoke for a bit. She helped write. She actually helped write some of Westland's code a couple decades ago, and offered herself up as a future resource. So that was good. But otherwise, speaking to Lake Oswego and Oregon City, they were aware of the concept, but didn't have any recent examples they could point to. So they just didn't see it as a major issue for them. So in terms of that, only because they couldn't come up with a recent example when I spoke to them. So really, City of Salem was the best one, and these are the people that Curry Gill at SHPO sent me to. So so that's what I can report on that. So any thoughts by the HRB on the proposed language?
I think it's good. It's direct. I mean, either you did or did not do something.
Yeah.
There it is. don't need to be ambiguous. Either you acted or you did not act.
Yeah,
there it is. So I like that. It's very nice. I don't think there's any ambiguity to it. And I like the idea that it's like, yeah, I mean, when they come through, when the application comes through, we give them the conditions and make sure that we have directly communicated to them, like, these are the expectations we have. It's now public record. We've directly told you as an individual. And that, I think, in the end, will hopefully get us a higher level of compliance and preservation of the historic building, because we can wave around a $50,000 fine in language as much as we want, but if nobody knows it's there, then the historic damage the damage has been done to the historic resource. So I like what you laid out there.
Excellent.
I agree, and that's also going to reflect back on the chapter 2, right? For the definitions.
Correct. Yes. Or yeah. So in terms of that also ties into that as well. And so let's see here. Yeah. So it's really these are layer, and then the HRB previously discussed expanding and refining the language.
I like the way you added that in there. Proper construction practices, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So unless I hear any objection, I think we're good to go on that. So, okay. Great. Well, I think staying in the same chapter, so one of the common concerns out there, not just in Westland, but everywhere, is windows are pretty easy to replace. They don't require a building permit typically. It's something people think of, oh, I have an old house, I need to reduce the draftiness, I want to update my windows, and this can slip through the cracks a little bit. And in terms of looking at the language recently, I identified a couple of areas where the code could be misread to perhaps exempt like the window replacement. And so I wanted to posit two revisions for your consideration. One is in chapter 25, in the exemptions chapter, and specifically 040A. And you'll find that on page, let's see here, on page 4 of version 7 of chapter 25. So it's exemption number 6 for window sashes. And just looking around the internet and talking among staff, people have different ideas about what constitutes the sash. And so I think the intention was a sort of one movable frame could be replaced with, as a periodic maintenance, but a lot of people are reading that as exempting the whole sort of glass structure in its frame. And so, and I suspect there have been cases out there where people have swapped out their windows without review. So my proposal would be just to remove this exemption, because I believe window replacement should occur. A wholesale window replacement should occur. Review should occur during that, and that if someone really is only doing ordinary maintenance, that would be captured under exemption 1. So I think it just removes a possible oops moment or a possible intentional workaround. And so that way either staff or HRB have a chance to review. I think we lost Danny there for a moment. Hey, Danny, are you back?
I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't know. Lovely internet
Oh.
connection.
Okay, no worries. Just want to make sure everyone's present as we talk about this. So any thoughts by the HRB on this? Concerns, questions?
I think that's a good suggestion. I didn't even know it was an issue because I thought it was fairly clear to everybody in the neighborhood that anything touching windows has to be reviewed, but it's fine to take it out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know the problem, at least in the historic district, we are constantly getting door-to-door salesmen trying to sell us vinyl windows, and that is a
Yeah.
no-no. And I don't think a lot of neighbors may not know that.
Yeah.
I always politely tell them they should leave the historic district and don't waste their time. But then the next thing that they follow up with is, well, can you do aluminum siding or vinyl siding? Like, yeah, no,
No.
you're not going to get any sales in this neighborhood from vinyl siding.
Yeah. Maybe in a mid-century building, but that's another issue. So okay. Well, unless there's any other concerns, I think we'll move on. I think to a couple pages over to 25.060. And I think there were a couple of insertions I thought might be helpful in terms of clarifying, again, also related to Windows. And I've been spending some time with the Secretary of Interior Standards, just looking at those, trying to understand how our code and that interface. And the first change is in, it's on page 10, it's 25.060A1. And then specifically on the second line to the bottom, the sentence talks about retention of stylistic features of original construction that shall be preserved include, but are not limited to, a line of columns, decorative shingles, projecting bays, windows and doors, and their related functional and decorative features. And so even though I know we also, we talk about windows elsewhere later on, I thought maybe reinforcing the relationship of doors and windows to the overall stylistic features of the structure, maybe as a way to sort of tie in that we're not looking at windows in isolation. Just a thought there. And then related to that, changes in numbers 13 and 15 under new windows in terms of restricting those to rear or secondary facades unless required for a new use, so that to prevent people from adding new windows on primary facades, which are those facing streets. And then on 15, and then including language about in window replacement, preserving the method of operation and related features such as shutters when window replacement has to occur. That if it's a double hung window, it's a double hung replacement. If it's, you don't replace a double hung with a swing window or something like that. So, or if there's a shutter, you make sure you have those related features carry over as part of that. And while the current code would allow the HRB to require that, I think maybe specifying that helps create greater level of clarity and of the expectations. So I know it's sort of I know we've talked about these sections before, but just recent discussions with members of the public have prompted thoughts about this. So, and I'm just curious if the HRB has any questions or concerns about that.
It isn't exactly clear in this section, but I know we've had conversations in the past about movement, placement of windows. Is that addressed in that new language?
So yeah, I understand that. And I was thinking about that, and maybe this may be something to more clearly address in A1 and maybe talk about the location, rhythm, pattern, something to that effect to reinforce that. And so, for example, rather than say windows and doors, it could say the location and proportion or something like that. There could be
Yeah, I mean,
patterns.
you could also talk about how you talked about the retention of the original materials. That could also be assumed to be location as well.
Correct, or a stylistic feature,
Yeah.
for example. So, in terms of how upper and lower stories relate, or are they evenly spaced, or how, so.
Yeah, and it gives them the freedom on the non-primary facade.
Correct.
To do some movement.
Correct. So that would be the idea there, is that protect those facades facing the street, and those interior ones having a little more a little more discretion there, a little more play.
Looking at A1 there, I was thinking, we say windows and doors and their related functional and decorative features. It's a lot of ands. And so I was thinking, after doors, replace that and with including.
Okay. Windows and doors, including they're related. Okay.
Yeah, because I like that, because I can see how someone can get really picky and say, well, that's not the window itself.
Yeah. That makes that makes
I
sense.
like that clarification.
Okay.
It's like, no one gets away with being a smarty.
No, that makes sense, and it kind of reinforces that they're overall integrated sort of features here. I like it. So anybody have any concerns with that? Nope. Okay, great. How about the other changes in 13 and 15? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great.
I think they're good.
Okay. Well, I think that one then sort of brings us to chapter 58 then, if we're ready to move on and talk about awnings. So so yeah, any I guess now's a good time to talk about the walking tour. So
Well, I think there was a consistent conversation going on about awnings throughout. About possibly matching what's existing there, what's already on the street.
yeah, and there was debate between the sort of shallower awnings versus the deeper awnings and how those function. I think there are the 5-foot awnings versus the smaller sort of immediate shelter awnings. So I think just as a reminder, the current language, which let me actually get to that here. That is on page 6 of chapter 58, about middle of the page, and so the current draft language is awnings shall extend beyond the front property line to a minimum of 3 feet to provide appropriate pedestrian coverage. So I would say this already. This should, if the HRB is talking about allowing greater discretion in the setback to accommodate adjacent buildings, and there is some discretion in the code to allow people to build to the predominant building line on the block. Perhaps it should be measured from the structure itself and not from the property line. So if we're looking for that. But I think the big question before the HRB was, how deep do we want to make the minimum? And that's something that I'm curious to hear from the board, what you thought after going to the tour and thinking about it and whatnot.
Well, to speak on Tom's behalf, I know, and he's a regular pedestrian
Mhm.
in the historic district, and he made it very clear that the 3-foot minimum definitely does not provide appropriate coverage for pedestrians.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree as well. And as we witnessed, there were a lot of buildings that did have 5, 6-foot extended awnings that did not require wood post support,
Hmm.
and that way it guaranteed one, coverage for, say, if there's any exterior seating, and two, would actually make it so people really felt they could be protected as a pedestrian moving along the street,
Hmm.
presuming the planters weren't in the way.
Or the stored picnic tables.
Yeah. So I'm hearing so is that proposal for 5 feet then? Scott?
Yeah, on the flip, there are some places that we saw where it didn't make sense for there to be a gigantic awning. So, there's like some fronts where it was literally just a door, and there it was, and they had a small awning.
Hmm.
So I personally wouldn't be a fan of requiring more than 5 feet as a minimum.
Okay.
But also, I mean, should we discuss a maximum? I don't know if we should do that or not. So that's one thing. Also, I remember we talked about awnings extending a certain distance beyond the doorway itself. I think that was
Mhm.
something I brought up on the walk. So that way, awnings wouldn't be pinched, and then it would look odd to have a partial awning along the face of a building.
Hmm.
I kind of said it in jest, a
Yeah.
10-foot from the door, but maybe we shouldn't go too far from that, for my suggestion. But of course, I want to open it up for discussion,
Hmm.
especially, I want to hear what John has to say. We missed him. There we go. Thanks for putting your hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed the walking, or I didn't miss it. I couldn't, I couldn't attend, so it isn't like I just chose to skip it. How wide is the sidewalk through there? Refresh my memory.
Oh,
10 feet? Or
12, I thought.
at least,
10?
yeah,
12?
at least,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay,
Plus the cycle track and yeah.
okay.
So,
So I guess the question is, I'm thinking structurally, I mean, 12 would obviously, I think, would be structurally really, if we say you can't have a post to hold it up,
hmm.
that presents a real engineering challenge.
Hmm.
Um, so do we have information about like what, I think 5 as a minimum seems reasonable, but maximum, we gotta, I would think, have to have some kind of idea. Okay, if I need to put some structure out, obviously the farther it is, the more structurally difficult it may be to attach it to a building unless it was, again, cantilevered out of the
Yeah.
building. So do we have any, I'm not saying this very well, do we have some sort of information like, well, if we came down and said 8 feet, but then a structural engineer would say, oh, well, do you realize what it would actually take to
Yeah.
support an 8-foot awning?
Hmm. So
I guess the question is, I think we've got some other parameters here we have to consider, not just aesthetics and.
hmm.
Well, and keep in mind, we also have a requirement in there for a 10 to 40 degree pitch. So, right, if you go farther out, then you're going to
Oh, yeah.
change.
Yeah, you're covering the whole.
Yeah.
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 It would be a big awning building. It's all.
Yeah. I think also they also need to be, I mean, removable as well, just in case utility work has to happen below the sidewalk. And I think just be mindful of, as in terms of engineering wise, you want to make sure that it's, they don't have to pop off immediately, but that they can, but that they can be easily removed and replaced, both for maintenance as well as utility repair. But I think You know, that depth question, it's a valid question. How far do we want to go? So,
I mean, do we need to put a maximum on it? Is that?
yeah. Hey, David, I think you're muted. So, yeah, but I don't think we have to put a maximum. I think what the board could put a maximum as well, but I think the minimum is probably more of the issue. But.
And I don't know that I would, oh, excuse me.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm building or adding the structure, I'm not gonna make the problem more difficult for myself. It's like, I need 5 feet, whatever number we come up with. I'm not gonna try to engineer 8 or 10 feet because, like I said, I'm sure structurally that becomes a much harder nut to crack and still make it look attractive and everything else. So, yeah, I guess that's a long way of saying, I don't think we really need a maximum. I think that might take care of itself. And we could, I mean, yeah, oh, I'm gonna put a 30-foot awning clear across the street, no. I want covered parking, on-street parking.
I mean, at some point, don't they, John, kick into other code anyway? I mean, isn't there other building code that would kick in, right?
Yeah, there is, and so I think, there's also the fact that it's public right of way, so the further you go out, the more, engineering may become a little more concerned as the further into the right of way you go, the intrusion as well.
So our conversation made me think of something that we didn't talk about at all, but if we make these changes, are we going to require then everyone to change their awnings that are existing? Are we going to require those? Is it only for new construction?
This would be only for new construction and alterations.
Okay. Because I was going to propose that if we did require those to try to make it happen, that maybe we come up with a grant or some kind of grant to assist with some of those costs. But
no, we're kind of held to the goalpost at the time that they applied, so we're not going to move the move the target, for people after they've already been approved. So,
but as we walked the streets, we saw some that no longer have those awnings that they had on. They have taken them off.
And that's true, and that's more of an enforcement aspect.
Okay.
That's correct. But that's but if someone has one and is happy with it and is maintaining it, I'm not sure we can require them to change it necessarily, but they could be incentivized, through money or other things as well, through grants and whatnot. So
Another ice storm.
Could happen.
I don't know how this 100-pound block of ice fell from the sky, destroyed my awning.
Strange weather we're having.
So that's fine. So we don't need to set a maximum. So I think we're all pretty good with the 5-foot minimum. Now, what do we think about the awning having a minimum distance from a doorway? So that way someone doesn't pinch an awning, so that's literally like, here's the door and here's the awning, like barely extending beyond the door itself. I mean, so should we create a minimum distance from a door?
So for clarification, you're talking horizontal distance in terms of width and not
horizontal. Yes.
Yep. Okay.
That's
low
ceiling. No. No.
Because currently the code does not discuss that at all. It just says it has to have an awning. It doesn't say what percentage of the building needs to be covered by that awning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're looking at a very strict reading of the code, it makes it sound as though the entire building must have that awning from property to property. I mean, if you really look at it, because it doesn't define it otherwise, it says the building must have an awning.
Yeah, period. End. It doesn't beyond. Yeah, so it gives a lot of discretion as to how wide, So that's
In our walkthrough, we saw that. We saw some that were just over the doorway, and then others that weren't.
And that's something, for example, the saloon is planning to change their awnings in the near future. And so it's hopefully someone has enough design sense to do something proportional and consistent, but you know, so that's a good question. Is that something the board's interested in establishing then? A minimum width or a minimum?
I mean, if the intention of the awning, at least I was always of having the awning was to have a clear and somewhat dry pathway for pedestrians to walk.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna go from front door awning to nothing, then front door awning, that's defeating the purpose. And what's the point of putting a big 5-foot massive awning in front of every doorway?
Yeah.
If that's the intention of it. If we were just trying to cover the front doors, although 5 feet's a long way from a front door, aesthetically that could probably even look awkward too, of having this. I mean, look like each building sticking their tongue out if we put a 5-foot in front of each door.
So going from memory here, Western Falls front typically in the past had sort of a continuous awning along the front to provide that sort of arcade feeling. So if we're going with the architectural style, I could confirm that with some further research, but the pictures I've seen of Western Falls front architecture, the awnings, if they're present, typically extend across the frontage. But they're often wood and whatnot as well. But we have a little different context now because of the current sidewalk constraints. But yeah. But if we're going with the style, I believe stylistically, it was consistently across the front, across the whole front.
So I wonder if we should
Also,
put that
I guess
in.
this is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Danny.
Go ahead. No, I was just saying maybe language to that extent should be put into that section.
Yeah. Well, I just noticed. I mean, this is more of a grammar thing. Looking at number 11, it says all buildings shall have awnings extending out from the building face, which makes it sound like every building must have multiple awnings. So we should say all buildings have an awning.
Yeah.
Or a continuous awning along extending out from the building face, for the length of the building face, or something. Yeah, just to add that clarification as you were talking about, John.
Although then we run into like the Handers building that was built, the Willamette building, where they made different awnings at their different architectural distances and so forth. Not just one continuous awning the entire huge one awning the entire building, and then had the different structures.
So perhaps a different idea would be like a percentage of the horizontal distance. You give, say, 50% or something like that. It's just to come up with something here, so as not to be overly prescriptive about distance, but 50% of the horizontal distance shall be covered by awnings or something like that. Just brainstorming here a little bit. So,
and maybe we can be more vague and just say majority or something like that.
Yeah, I would prefer to define the term a little bit more in terms of what a majority is. So, but yeah. So, I guess majority could be interpreted as more than 50%, but
I just think I could see some developers doing 51% just to qualify, and maybe not doing what's architecturally best.
Well,
let's talk about subordinate. What is subordinate here?
Fair. Okay. True. Yeah.
I mean, I think we've been lucky. Handers is a great designer and does a very good job. I don't think necessarily all designers and all developers will be as good as him on making it architecturally appealing. So if we don't put it in there, they may not. They'll just do the minimum.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the thing, though, is like the language as we added to provide appropriate pedestrian coverage, which I think implies definitely covering the doorways, and as well as not skipping out on the sidewalks. So I think that, because then that gives us the opportunity where we look at a design and we're like, yeah, we feel that is appropriate coverage or that it isn't, then we don't step on the architect's creativity, but at the same time we say, no, no, you're trying to just get off on a technicality and pinch a few pennies off of what we think is authentic design. So we could leave that discretion there for us, right?
Yeah.
Is that pedestrian coverage getting into the building or walking the sidewalk?
Yeah.
It probably does a little bit of both.
We,
So
I mean, we could add that, adequate pedestrian coverage for entryways as well as along the walkway in front of the building. And we could be that specific and add that language.
Or you say public
Or-
right away, public right away or something, yeah.
mhm. Let me check to see if I have my pictures from the. Let's see. May not have transferred them, unfortunately. So, so if it would help, I could actually pull up some of the images from Main Street, some of the examples.
Yeah, I'm for taking a quick peek if
Okay, if
not
that's
too much
okay.
trouble.
So,
Yes, please.
okay, let me see if I can share this. So let's see. Okay, can you see the picture?
I can't.
The gray screen.
Let's see. What about now? What do you?
No, just a gray screen. Hey, there's your cursor.
Okay,
Did you take the pictures in the middle of the night?
It's very dark.
No.
maybe I
There
did.
are now
So,
few pictures.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
okay,
Lots of little pictures now, great.
lots of little pictures. Let's see if I can get these. Okay, that's a stereo receiver. Sorry. Okay, so do you? Let's see, are you?
If you see the thumbnails.
Okay, still see this thumbnails. That is. Oh, I know what I need to do. Let's. Okay, can you see? Do you have a picture now?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just gonna. No. Okay, so there's. I'm seeing a picture of the Hanson building.
Yep.
Let's see here. So just to. So we have these deeper awnings here that extend across the sort of individual fake building front. For lack. So just as a reminder, here are the 4 foot. These were 4 feet, as I recall. By the saloon.
I think were those 3 feet.
I didn't have a tape measure, but per the plan,
They're not even as long. If you look at the tables, they're not even as long as the tables, and that's got to be at least a 3 or 4 foot table.
Yeah. So let's see.
That's not a 6 foot table, I don't think.
No.
But we did note that those were not even adequate to cover the tables.
Correct. Correct. So let's see here. And again, a lot of these sort of span, and these sort of mold in the buildings broken up to look like multiple smaller buildings. It's sort of here's the gas station. I have an update on the gas station later.
And how's the code? That we're gonna have to make the gas station then have an awning too?
No, because they'd be coming in under a non-conforming situation right now. So, and again, similar here. So, and these awnings are not full coverage, but they are substantial enough to create definition. And they sort of and the awnings themselves also reinforce the facade breaks a little bit. And they're of sufficient width to cover the windows, the glazed areas. So, okay. There we go. We're veering off into other other stuff. Okay. So that's just a refresher there then.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So actually, let me have an idea here. So standard 7 requires a visual building break every 25 to 50 feet. And I think having a long continuous, if we record one single continuous awning, that may go counter to number 7 that requires the building be broken up every 25 to 50 feet into multiple facades. So I would recommend maybe putting that idea aside in terms of that, and maybe focus on those individual building breaks, or at least not conflict with that. So, so for example, is standard 15 talks about display and pedestrian windows. It requires them to extend across at least 80% of the building front. So here's another standard that maybe to mirror, as well. So, and again, this is for new buildings. Places like the saloon are going to be subject to the chapter 25 is going to preempt chapter 58 because the saloon it's within the historic district. So different standards are going to apply to that building.
Oh, it's within the historic district?
It is. Let me double check on that. I'm fairly certain it is. So.
Know that.
Yeah, because the district bumps up a little bit.
Yeah, I know there's some weird jogging there.
Yeah, so there's just over a block of the commercial design district that has the local district extend into it.
That's going to make it harder for them.
So I presume you all can see the zoning map, or right now? Is that?
It was there? It disappeared.
There we go. Right. Is it back again?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, this block, 14th, between 13th and 14th, and then one building on either side. The blue area here is where the historic district bumps into the design district, and then we also have these scattered independently listed buildings as well. But it's this block right here is chapter 25 preempts 58, where the standards conflict. So in terms of awnings in this part of downtown, chapter 25 will take precedence in terms of like historic appearance. And that's basically the church to over here.
That's Cooperstown, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. It's Cooperstown. So everything there. Okay. So I think so. One thing to do might be to maybe tie the standards to doorways and windows again. If there's could talk about 80% of the building front also has to be in awnings or something. So just
it makes sense to match it. I mean,
yeah. Oh, Scott, does that address would that address your concerns, or do you think it's not? Is that not quite in line? Oh, you're muted.
I was unmuted.
Oops.
yeah.
I'm sorry. So you're proposing do the 80% for consistency?
Well, just just as a talking point here, just, perhaps if you're concerned about having too narrow, and I think this is an issue you've raised a couple of times, if you're concerned about the horizontal width, looking to parallel other standards such as this 80% requirement for ground level windows. So yeah, so just a thought there in terms of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I definitely like that high level of coverage. I mean, on one end, I am like, say for instance, looking at where the building that Oleum's in,
Yes.
because I'm not sure if those awnings hit the 80% mark,
Okay. Yeah.
and I think those awnings look fine. I'm not sure how everyone else feels about the awnings in front of Oleum, but what if those are only like 74% or something?
Okay.
And
Okay.
then they're like, oh great, we're not hitting that 80% mark. But I think we could say 80% still, or and then maybe like add like a slight deviation option. I mean, I don't know, that just by eyeballing it, I mean, that definitely looks like the majority, at least I think at least 75% there.
I think so. And I think here, but I think the awning width is sort of defined by the outer trim of the windows there. So I think again the awnings are matching that.
Yeah.
And in other cases, it's matching that. So maybe it's not a percentage. Maybe it's the full width of a doorway. I don't know, or an entranceway, or
Well, and if the windows and doors are the code, they'd have to be 80%. So
correct.
by default, they would have to also be 80%.
Correct.
Oh,
unless they get a variance, let's get sort of variance on it.
Oh, well then I guess just say that, 80% unless, there's a variance, and then in accordance with that.
Yeah.
I mean, we could also put it as a minimum of 80%, because if someone did want to make like a Cooperstown type.
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
Cover.
Right. Yeah, I'm cool with, more than 80%.
Okay. Okay. So let's see here.
Because I could potentially see that new building that's going to go between the two bungalows. If they're going to get a setback, they might want to just have it all the way across. They might want 100% coverage. That's a 25-foot. It's only a 25-foot lot. I mean, it's not a big amount either.
It's true. Yeah. Well, and again, these are only minimums. If people want to exceed the minimum, they're certainly welcome to do so. So that's not. Yeah, that's. Again, these are just the floor, not the ceiling. So,
as long as our language says that, as long as we're not saying must have an 80% coverage or no,
yes. Yeah, it would say like at least or at a minimum.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would make. So I'll just write some notes here. So something like shall extend at least 80%. Let's see, at least 80% of the building front. I guess I could just match the language from number 15. And again, if they're not comfortable with this, we can, that can apply for like an exemption or something like that. So, or a variance. So, or sorry, design exception. Sorry, design exception.
We changed we changed the term.
Yeah, design exception. Sorry. Yeah. Just double checking myself there since we haven't talked about that section in a while. So, yeah. So, so am I hearing something akin to extend a minimum of 5 feet from the facade and at least 80% of the front, or is that about?
I think that would be great wordage to bring back to the board, maybe on the next meeting.
Okay. So that's.
I want to hear Tom's opinion. I want to make sure Tom gets his opinion in here too, and James may have an opinion too.
Okay. Okay. So do you think we're close enough to maybe talk? So I understand you want final sign off by the whole board. Would you be comfortable tentatively scheduling a meeting in February with the Planning Commission to talk about where you're at on this? To kind of say, assuming January, it's all good, we have the language, having
I
that
think
meeting
that
with
kind of
them.
makes sense.
And
I-
then if it blows up in January and we suddenly realize there's a giant flaw, we can pull it from the agenda. So, but yeah, so, okay,
That timing sounds right. I think that's about right.
awesome. Like I can certainly do that and work on revised language. So, excellent. So, okay,
Thank you for putting that together.
oh, absolutely, yeah. So were there any other sections you guys wanted to touch base on before we move on to the next agenda item? No. Okay.
So
Okay.
our next item on our work session agenda is end of year report to council.
It is. And
Thank you for putting that together, John.
of course, yeah. So I pulled together a draft. It's a new format compared to previous years. And so this will be forwarded on to council to help them work on their own goals and the goals that and the requests that they will send out to all the community advisory boards to work on in the future. So between publication last week and tonight, Tom and Chris sent me their thoughts. So I've inserted them into a draft. I think it might be easier if I just if I just share this on the screen. If we were in person, I'd just put it up on the board, but so let's see here. Okay, so so let me know if you can't see the draft here. I'll make it a little bit bigger if that makes it easier to read. Is that font size sufficient? Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So so I think the top seems sort of a summary of some of the metrics, but I guess we can just go through this section by section unless there are any questions before we get started.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So so the new format, it's sort of it's the name of the board, Historic Review Board, the group leadership. It's a reminder, elections are next month, so think about officers. Willamette Falls Drive Commercial Design District. So since I did arrive in April, if there's anything else that happened, I missed my search, let me know. So in terms of accomplishments, this is what I could think of. I'm curious if you as the board can think of anything else you wanted to share with council to make them aware of. But you've been working steadily on updates to multiple chapters of the CDC. You've certainly provided support for the listing of historic West Linn City Hall to the National Register. You had one quasi-judicial hearing for a Class 2 design review. I believe that was January, February. And then you've provided input and direction for a CLG grant as well. And so for the walking tour. And that's in terms of, were there any other accomplishments you wanted to sort of crow about or share or identify, and something I missed?
We did like a training with Shippo. Didn't we do that? Like that was at the beginning of the year, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did one SHPO training.
Was that in the fall or was that early in the year?
All blends together. I don't remember.
It was during COVID.
It was sometime during COVID. Yeah. Exactly
Okay.
right.
Yeah. What is time? Okay. Yeah. It's COVID time. So
In the fall though, wasn't it?
yeah.
Really? I don't remember.
I can add this. And I can confirm this. So
Yeah, you go back and watch all the meetings. And...
let's see here. ongoing.
Here it is. It was during the summer.
Okay. So I will.
Oh,
go
no,
back.
maybe it was actually in this. Okay, no, this was in the summer. He was telling us we're going to do one. Was that in this year or was that last year?
I believe it may have been last year. I will double check. So if it was 2020, I will remove this before it goes on to the city manager's office. Okay. So we'll just add myself a note there. Sounds good. And we can certainly arrange for that in the future as well. But yeah, with COVID throws, it's hard to track time. So, and was there anything else you wanted to report, or was there more you want to elaborate on about the training with SHPO? Hey.
Oh, well, the SHPO training, I think that was, and I think this is good to consider, with like looking at the gas station and
Yes.
how, because the training we did talk about like what is historic, design wise and its appeal. So that way you're not just looking at dates, you're looking at design, and
Yeah.
so I think that's a good correlation for that project in particular.
Okay. Yeah. So you're thinking maybe a statement about resulting in, or let's see here, including the importance of features. Yeah.
Right, discussing design features that distinguish um, design through various periods of
Yeah.
history.
I know we did also one of our work sessions that we talked with folks about I don't know what we calling it. Are we calling it waterfront or bridge area redesign? We gave input onto that whole. I don't know what what's it being called now? Is it waterfront?
I think it may go by different names. I believe it's the waterfront was the latest
The area
one.
surrounding City Hall, the whole
Correct,
City
correct,
Hall.
correct that one. I believe that's on pause a little bit. I think we're going to see a nudge from the state in the future to make some movement on that. So, but yeah, so
That was something we did do. We obviously put input onto it, but if it's on pause, then maybe it's irrelevant.
okay. And that was part of the SHPO training as
No,
well?
that was
A
a separate.
one?
That was
Okay.
separate.
I'll go back through and double check the agendas before I arrived. So, cool. Okay. Okay. So let's see here. Well, I think we can move on, and then if anything else comes to mind, we'll come back to this. So I think I've heard a lot of feedback from this group about both the challenges as well as some of your frustrations about the work you'd like to do or the concerns you have right now, such as the bungalows. And I thought that would those would fit into the council goal setting as well as some of the challenges you went through. So for 2021, I mentioned attendance at times. A couple of meetings was a challenge. It's been hard to pull the whole group together. And if Tuesday nights don't work, we can discuss maybe rescheduling, this to work for the group. But I thought this may be one issue to talk about. I think related to that, maybe the challenges of COVID as well. And both Tom and Chris had thoughts, which I've included in the document. And I included both Tom's and then I sort of created a hybrid of their thoughts, maybe that could be included. I think both of them, since we're not here, I'll just read their comments. Both of them, thought that in-person meetings could be more constructive and more result in a higher level of functionality and team building.
Yeah.
So I think we're all sort of learning to work in the COVID world, but this is something they thought was important. If I can integrate this in. I'm curious if you all agree with this, or if your experience is different. So
I actually like virtual meetings, but that's I personally like them, so I'm able to actually be involved more than I would not.
Yeah.
But
maybe.
But it's not that I don't like to see you
Plus
guys.
you
I
have
like to see you guys. But
backgrounds.
I can change the background.
See everyone's favorite books. So,
I can wear pajama bottoms, so
yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing those. No.
Wear them.
Sure. I definitely concur with Chris. I mean, definitely the turnover. I think really caused a lot of setbacks with our productivity, and I think that also, yeah, if we were able to do in-person meetings, I think that there were times where like nonverbal communication, as many people say,
Yes.
like 80%. I get 80% is a good number for tonight of communication is nonverbal. And so I think that, yeah, we could be a lot more effective as communicators in a group if we were able to access nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to say, John, is we in the past, it's hard when we don't have judicial, hearings.
Yeah.
To get members to want to come out to do a work session. So that is certainly, obviously only having one for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks join the board to be able to do those, and if there's not anything going on, they don't feel there's necessarily a reason to be at the meeting.
Good point.
Which is just one of those things we've experienced that in the past, which is why past chairs have actually canceled meetings if we don't have a heavy agenda.
Yeah.
We just cancel and postpone, because obviously we're all busy. We have lots of things to do. We don't necessarily have to always have a monthly check-in.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's something to keep, in mind going forward. But if we don't have a lot of work to do, we could do that. Of course, I don't think we didn't have a chairman for half the year either, chairperson either. So
that's true, and
that could have also been part of the problem.
That's true. Well, I believe staff did cancel a few meetings, a few months, check-ins, just because we didn't have much to update you on as well. So that makes sense. So did you think that issue rises to the level of maybe mentioning that small number of quasi-judicial hearings? I don't know, just
and that could be just a reason why. I just the challenge of bringing quorum is, if we're just doing a work session, it may not be.
Yeah.
I was going to say it might be sort of an interesting thing to comment on, but the city council is not necessarily going to decide, let's give them a bunch more.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough. The planning commission, that's easy. From the standpoint of we're not expecting some solution from the council or affecting how they were on the city council based on this particular issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are our challenges, not necessarily the council's challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. No. These are not council challenges. These are definitely HRB challenges. These are your own concerns. Yeah.
But that's good for, the council to consider for future appointments. So that way, when a seat opens up, they can say, hey, just so you know, there's really not going to be a lot of hearings. So I know you're interested in hot courtroom action. but it's not going to happen here.
Yeah. I'll think of something, a way to phrase that. So, okay.
I want a direct quote on that.
No. I'm not going to quote you on that. So, well, yeah. Diminished interest in the activities of the board.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I was thinking. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think it's understood, at least should be, this is much more a legislative forum than a judicial forum.
Yeah.
Because, but I certainly think what we're doing is very worthwhile.
Oh.
Not making individual decisions, but certainly looking through code and just the discussion tonight, I think is very useful, or can be very useful. So I don't want to make any of this sound, and I don't think it really does. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, well, we didn't do this, therefore, why are we here?
Yeah.
I don't want to give any sense of that, because I think it's a very valuable service we're providing.
Yeah. No, I don't think this is, the way I read these comments, it's not diminishing the importance of the board. It's just challenges you're facing as you try and execute the work. Turn over the remote format, the mandatory remote format, and then just and again, this isn't just amongst you as well. It's quasi-judicial hearings tend to bring out the neighborhood, tend to bring out other parties, and which then connects people to your other work. So I think this is not just an internal critique. It's how you also engage in the community itself. So, but so I was thinking in terms of what gets communicated to higher up, to maybe consolidate Tom and Chris's comments into a hybrid comment, which you all seem to be comfortable with conceptually. Do you think this is something that would maybe summarize your experience? And I can make this larger if that would help. So, yeah.
I think it's a fair combination.
Okay.
Summary, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Okay. So that works. Okay. And then so we can come back to this if anything else pops into your head, but I think the last one was council goal setting. And I think in terms of if there are things important to you that you think are important to the city, perhaps you should this may be something council may also want to put as part of their goals, and maybe formally task the HRB with addressing. So for example, placing the historic bungalow issue on the docket for a code update would be one. And Mr. Owen certainly had thoughts about this, and I've included his comments here. But I'm curious.
I'm putting it just for verbiage. I wonder if we want to change the term bungalows to something more inclusive, because there is one house that is technically not a bungalow style.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the word would be. I'm just
some
causing problems.
Yeah. Preserve the remaining
historic properties or something.
Yeah. Well, I think the issue is that they're single family homes, or they were constructed as.
There are those houses. We didn't bring them up. There's 2 houses or 3 houses next to the church that are currently homes. They're currently being occupied by residents. But as soon as those people move out, and they're no longer protected. And one of those is also not a bungalow. One of them is though. But
Yeah. So maybe remaining historic homes, or if no,
Parenthetically, colloquially known as bungalows.
Yeah.
we can put that in quotes. I like that. The so the two options are the quotes or um
Or
versus
classic
it.
Pacific Northwest style family homes, or
Yeah, because some of them, actually 3 of them or 4 of them aren't even homes anymore. Now they're
Yeah,
or whatever. But
yeah. Yeah, people seem to talk about the bungalows commonly,
yeah,
but they are. I understand your point. Stylistically, it's a little bit of a misnomer. So, um,
and then there's a couple that 2 that just clearly aren't bungalows, but style. But I think quotes is fine. I'm okay with quotes.
okay.
I think the council will get what we're leaning at.
Yeah. Hey, John, do I take your comment a little too literally here, or is?
Well, maybe I didn't. I guess when I look at it, I go, is anybody going to be lost in what we're referring to?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, maybe somebody on the council would not know what we're referring.
Well, I know some people were that house is at the corner of 12th and 10th. Some people didn't even know that was an old house. I mean, it's it's a 110-year-old house.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like the other bungalows. It just looks like it's a nondescript commercial building,
Yeah.
but it's a 1910 old home.
Again, I don't know that this is necessarily worth the amount of time this many people are putting.
I agree.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I think for now, this is just a broad brush sort of thing, but yeah. So I think Chris's comment had a good thought about mentioning how as opposed to whether it's appropriate. And I guess in my mind, I guess the question was, there was one question: is this the first question is this a worthy item to focus the city's attention on? And 2 is, how do we get there? And I think I'm hearing from more and more people there's strong community interest, at least in preserving them. So
Well, I always go back to our definition of our group is to preserve properties, and the historic district has already been. I mean, that map has already been drawn,
yeah.
and so previous councils have said that's the area for you to protect.
Yep.
So I think, yeah, I actually agree with Chris. Appropriateness may not be the question. Maybe it's how. More of a process.
Okay. So it could be maybe to explore, maybe so replace this with
Yeah, just explore preserving the remaining or ability or yeah.
I don't have a great solution to what I'm going to offer up, but it does say this council is going to be setting, what issues should the council set goals? So I think our direction here should be, we believe there's the council should set a goal to,
yeah.
I don't have a good end to that sentence, but in other words, make this really direct rather than more general. Yeah, we have this thing. No, we'd like the council to help us resolve. Do they really want us to protect this? In other words, we're going to
Yeah.
actively come up with some mechanism or propose some mechanism
Mm-hmm.
to do it more than just the code.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's my 2 cents there.
Okay. And any other thoughts on this section from the HRB, or it sounds like this is the one issue?
Well, I had a couple others.
Yeah.
Because I'm always a pain. I would like to get some help from the council about enforcement,
Okay.
which I know I brought up a number of times just in general. And I don't know if that's a council goal that needs to be done or a staff goal, or I know, John, you're mentioning some other just communications internally. The other thing, and I know I've already touched this to you, John, is that I would like the council to put some more focus on representation on our board. In the
Oh,
fact
yes.
that we have, I'm the only one from the neighborhood in this board, and I'd like some, not that none of us, we're all great, and I like that James is on here because James got a lot of history, but I don't want to be the lone wolf in the neighborhood saying, well, here's what we're going to do to all my neighbors.
Mhm.
Because I want the neighbors to be here to say that they don't want that or do want that or whatever. So I'd like the board, the council to think about that as they're appointing in the future. Make sure that there is a representation from the historic district
Yeah.
on the board. As well as, and I mentioned this to you, John, as well, is I don't know how you would phrase this.
Mhm.
The city continues to make changes on the Willamette Falls Drive without approval or any kind of hearing from us. And
Mhm.
even though we are supposed to be tasked with looking at, chapter 58, the city ignores chapter 58 and just does what it wants to. And then we are stuck with structures that don't fit code that the city imposed when home, owners and builders and developers have to follow chapter 58. Yet, for some reason, the city doesn't think it has to. And I bring up the example of that concrete structure they have put there that is a drinking fountain,
Yes.
which would never match, which doesn't fit it doesn't, I don't even see how it could fit into chapter 58 in any way. There's just absolutely nothing structurally about it that would fit. And it is a structure, it's a building, it's got a door.
Mhm.
It looks like a permanent outhouse.
Mhm. Yeah. So it's what I'm hearing is you would so
I don't know how you phrase that one, sorry.
yeah. So no, it's fine. So I think bringing streetscape improvements more in line with the goals of chapters 25 and 58, because it joins both the historic district as well as the commercial design district. And then
I think it also that I would like to have, I mean, everybody else has to get approval. Everyone else has to run it through the board.
no, I agree. Yeah.
So it's like, it's almost a jurisdiction challenge.
Okay.
Is that we have jurisdiction over Willamette Falls Drive, yet we don't. All of a sudden, the city, I don't know, whoever it is, whoever's doing it, just thinks they can go around and just do whatever they want and put in, planters and bike racks and chairs and lamp posts without any kind of review. There's no review.
Yeah. Well, that sounds pretty clear in terms of a request. So in terms of, yeah. So
I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who's thinking that, but I'm actually not even my own idea. This was from previous board members who've left. And actually they left because of this, being angered on this issue that it continually happened, that decisions were being made and the board was being ignored, not even ignored, we weren't even being consulted. I know
No, it's right there in chapter 58. I mean, chapter 58B, enhance the historic and aesthetic quality of the commercial district. And I mean, we should at least be consulted for these things. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not sure if we need to say, oh, well, we need to have a hearing before these benches get put through. But in the very least, like, ask for our input, consider these things from the historic perspective before, we sign a contract. That'd be at least considerate of, why we exist.
Yeah.
Well,
Previous board members have thought that they said they want approval because everyone else would have to. If Handrich were to put in those things, he'd have to get approval.
So I did raise this question with City of Salem staff, and apparently Salem does have a process for that to occur. So so there is precedent out there, at least for at least one city. I'm sure others have something similar. So so I think I can play with this language and follow up on this, but It sounds, what I'm hearing is that you'd like council to I guess in terms of future streetscape improvements should be you know
I think it
should be done under the advice and approval of the HRB, basically for conformance with the goals of chapters 25 and 58.
I think
believe we're-
Scott,
Yeah,
I believe Scott said it the best. Is
yeah,
there needs to be established a process where this will happen.
yeah,
But rather than come down to a specific, oh, if you want to make this change, we should try to, no, there should be a process where, or get rid of chapter 58. We'll all go do something else.
Yeah.
That's a little crasser than I would suggest, but
yeah. Okay.
I think that's it. Look at establish a process where they have to go through this. The same procedures as you're demanding of everybody else.
Okay. And then did you want us to
Make
recent
that
example?
really polite and easy, you know.
Yeah. That's good. I think that's a good summation of it. So, and the core of the issue. Did you want to cite specific examples or just leave it kind of open? I know the board is upset about the streetscape. Did you want to mention that or just?
I mean, it's already there. We're not gonna have them rip it out, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if we need to open that wound again. And it may have been done under previous council too, you
Yeah.
know?
Don't rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah. I'm also, you know, what I'm actually starting to think about is what's gonna happen in front of the police station. I'm sorry, the old city hall. Is that they're gonna do stuff there, and then that's gonna be, we're not gonna have a say on any of that. And all of a sudden they're gonna say, oh, we'll make the street go right up to the front door of the police station. And, you know,
Yeah.
who knows?
Mhm.
Of course, we have less jurisdiction because we don't have a chapter 58 overlying that, but still.
That will be step 2. Incorporate that.
I'm just trying to get a draft here.
And then part of this was, and this I'm just while you type, this was also brought up by Jerry Offer a few years ago because the city was talking about redoing some of the streets inside the Willamette Historic District.
Mhm.
And a lot of those decisions were going to be made without any kind of input from the neighbors. They're just going to start realigning streets, and that stopped. I haven't heard anything since then.
Okay.
But I know Jerry Offer at the time was the chair. He was not happy with that. That we were basically being told what they're going to do versus asking, "Is this what we should do?" And somehow it stopped. But I mean, the whole process. But they were talking about, you know, those areas where there's the sway of you know, ripping all the sway out, putting in sidewalks, and that was not what the neighbors wanted at all.
I can understand that. So yeah. Okay.
I can just see that being that'll be the next thing that'll come, and it'll probably be long after we're out on the board. But for the next board, there needs to be a process in place for when they start talking about the historic district does need to be fixed. We got potholes like crazy over here, and I know that's why the city hasn't touched the potholes. So they don't want to mess with that. But you know, at this point, it's my front yard is mostly gravel at this point. The street is just corroded.
Yeah.
And
So eventually that's going to be dealt with.
Historic.
It's historic. It is. Yeah.
I like it.
As long as the horse manure doesn't come back, I'll be fine. You know.
So I'm just going to follow up with an earlier comment. Feel free to suggest wordsmithing here. So
I like that. Yeah. No, it's good. It could be also occupants too, property owners and occupants, but I guess property owners they're the taxpayers, so it probably makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking like someone like Shannon Knight, who just commented earlier. I don't know if she's actually owns her property. She's a business owner, but she may not actually own.
All right, not so much should consider increasing, but make a priority.
Yeah.
So I think the questions they're both proper. There are residents. There are people. There are homeowners. There are people who live. They may not rent, but they may not own, but they may rent. And then there are business owners as well and property owners. So, so owners and residents, or owners and occupants. Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, so just a thought. So I think
A little bit vague too. How many?
To the HRB.
Yeah.
The question there is prioritize how many, because you should have a balance too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
It is a citywide, national-wide resource, so I don't know how you balance it.
Yeah, don't kick me out. You know.
And it's just, I don't know what the right numbers are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where I read it, but I know one of the defining goals of the defining membership of this was to include in this group, folks who had historic backgrounds as well as the real estate and architecture and all of those things. But it just seems to be I'm the only one I know who lives in the neighborhood right now. When I was on the board the first time, there was 4 of us from the neighborhood, so I was learning from them mostly because I didn't know the background and history, and now I'm like I'm it.
Well, I mean, for me, I mean, I live in like late 70s contemporary modern style home, which I, would think that in the future could be viewed as a historic home. And so in that regard, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah.
You live in a future historic property. I like.
Yeah. I actually I saw a presentation recently where they were the styles of the 70s and 80s are now becoming talked about in resource inventories, and it was an educational thing about start thinking about this. So you're not too far off there, Scott.
I mean, my neighbor across the street, I mean, his house, I mean, he has all this really nice woodwork on the exterior. I mean, he hand stains it all. I mean, his house looks awesome. I mean, it catches on fire. It's like, woo, but I mean, it looks awesome.
But until then, it looks great. Yeah.
Well, Scott, do something to make yourself world famous, and voila, your house will be historic.
Yeah.
There you
There we go.
And the last thing, John, that I mentioned was the somehow enforcement of some.
Oh yes, enforcement. Prioritize enforcement. There is already a second community service officer coming on board, so code enforcement staff is now rising to 2. I know our current officer is quite busy. Nicola is quite occupied and is looking forward to relief. So, is this like a prioritization, or is it what's the What's the concern? I guess, how do you want to, how would the HRB want to phrase this?
I guess prior.
Yeah.
I just know there's been, you know, many years
Verify.
of lax enforcement.
Yeah. Okay.
And
I mean, not
consistency.
that I want to knock on the door. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't want to knock on the door telling me that my windows are out of code, but you know.
Yeah.
You're first on the investigate on the
Exactly.
inspection list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The city didn't just add one more, they doubled the enforcement.
There you go.
I was gonna say also enforcement and education.
That's a good point.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely been on the code enforcement side of things, and I kind of I enjoyed the aspect of the educational part of it. Um, but my superiors were like, no, we just want to do enforcement. And I was like, oh, well, you know, they're like, they should have known. And I was like, well, I mean, maybe we should be nice first, you know?
Yeah. I think you're right. Education. Yeah. It's why we see so many, so much outreach about speeding and drunk driving and things like that. I mean, you kind of should know, but some of these things, but yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So I think we have 4 items here. So the bungalows, streetscape improvements, appointments to the HRB, and enforcement and education. So we'll see a thumbs up from John there.
Oh, if I may,
Of course.
just so the process for to ensure goals of CDC 25 and 58 are met
Yeah.
during city initiated streetscape improvements.
Hmm.
I was gonna say for to increase aesthetic consistency
Okay.
between the historic buildings and the surrounding developments or something like that. You know, just so we can say, hey, this is, you know, we're not just trying to do overreach. We're trying to like make sure things like actually look good, not just, you know, put in a cube and there you are, right there, and that's it. You know.
Well, and also to consider the historic stuff. I mean, it was funny during the when the construction was going on, the historical society got a number of calls from people asking if they're doing architectural when they're doing the ripping out of the street. Is anyone digging and looking for arrowheads or any historic things? Like, no, it's just there's dump trucks taking the dirt away.
Yeah.
And you know, there was nobody considering it. Which is part of that's part of the problem with SHPO though, is that if you did happen to find an arrowhead, they'd have to stop all construction and have to do a actual. So
Yeah.
it discourages you from looking while you got your
Yeah.
backhoe going.
Well, I think if human remains are found, they have to. So it's
Right.
yeah. So
Well, but also, I mean, if they find any isn't there? If they find a possible archaeological site, they have to stop, right? I mean,
I believe
that's
so.
understood.
Yeah.
In the state of Oregon, they require that if you
Yeah.
find anything historic. And what does that mean? You know,
Yeah.
anytime I dig in my garden, I find bottles and, you know, doorknobs and weird stuff that are all 100 years old. So it's like, well, am I gonna have to have an archaeological dig now because I found a plate? You know,
Yeah.
they buried weird stuff in our yard. It was that's where all this garbage went. But you know,
Right? That was the original landfill.
yeah, there was.
Oh wow. Okay. So I think we have everything here. So I'm so get rid of these. So I think, you know, I'll be deleting Tom and Chris's comments. Just these were just for these. So need to get these off to council and the city manager and the council. Is it okay if I just coordinate with the chair on any sort of last minute issues, or I can send this out to the whole HRB for one last review after I tidy this up tonight, and send it back out. Does that work for you all, or are you okay with me just kind of wordsmithing and sending it off? I'm happy either way. Doesn't matter to me. So
when do we need to get this to? What's the deadline to get this to the?
hopefully this week, actually. So I was hoping to get it out. I know. Yeah, so I kind of asked for a little bit of delay because we were meeting this week, and so I was hoping to get that. But I could probably sometime this week could be fine, and then that way after Christmas, we can get it off. So
yeah, if you could get it to.
Honest, I'm not. I'm not going to really dedicate enough mental space to look it over. So, I mean, I trust Danny to give it a final look just so you have another pair of eyes on it before you finalize it.
And if you could send it to the entire board just in case anyone happens to want to look at it.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know.
I will look at it if you send it to me, John.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll send it to the whole HRB, and then if you could get me your comments this week, that'd be fabulous. So
yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I trust John's sensibilities on
Okay.
our intentions and what we're,
Okay.
and it's, we're not deciding the fate of the world here.
No.
Just to fit the historic district, that's all.
Historic, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So then can we move on? Our next item is items of interest from the board. I had one, John, for you. Last time we had that presentation from on HB 2001.
Yes.
And I had asked if you could look up to see if there's any direct conflicts that you could see, or anybody else, other cities could see, between our historic code and 2001. I didn't know if you had a chance to do that yet.
I've not had a chance to do that yet, so but I will. I offhand I can't think of any, but I will be double checking on that. We have a consultant working with us on the code, and so I will, next meeting I will have an update for you on that. So
it seemed like from a presentation it wasn't going to be a conflict, but I just want to make sure while we're doing this code thing, we might as well fix it before we send it to council and then realize, oops, 201 is going to mess up all of our code.
Correct. Really, a lot of this is actually it'll actually strip out a lot of things that could in fact conflict. So really, it's I mean, the goal of the state is really to streamline this process, and but because construction within the historic district is one of the exemptions for some of the clear and objective. So anyways, no, I'm not expecting any, but I will have a better, more coherent response back in January. So
thank you.
Yeah, we've got a lot going through the system right now. So
and I have another item of interest for the board, just to throw this out there, but the Westland Historical Society is an affiliate of the Oregon Historical Society. And right now, Oregon Historical Society is giving a bonus that if anyone joins their affiliates before the end of the year, which is a $25 fee to join the Historical Society, you get an automatic membership with the Oregon Historical Society for 1 year, which is like an $85 value. So if you are looking to join the Oregon Historical Society, I know a way you can do it by just joining the Westland Historical Society for $25. So we've been throwing that out there. Yeah, it's a nice little thing that that Oregon Historical Society did for all of their affiliates, because everyone's been suffering.
We lost Danny.
Frozen.
I'm sure they make lovely Christmas gifts.
And you also support your local historical society. So if you wanted to join, you can go to the historical society, westlandhistory.org, and that is only until the end of the year. And you have to go to the Join Us page, but that's to end of the year, and then you'll get a notice from OHS saying welcome to Oregon Historical Society. I'll just throw that one out there, little ad.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great last minute gift idea.
There you go. Gift to people too.
I like it.
So I was the historical society last week at their meeting. They were sharing this, and all the people were like, "I don't understand how does that make sense? There's a scam there." I'm like, "No, $25 and you get a membership." And they're like, "Why?"
No.
Okay, so
Yeah. It's like you're selling ShamWows.
I know. Wow. Any other items from the board?
I'm just not really an action item at this point, but 2026 is the 250th anniversary of the United States. So
Mhm.
probably wasn't a lot of the revolution happening out here in Oregon.
Not quite.
Anyway, just start thinking maybe about some sort of activities helping celebrate the 250th anniversary. And it is 4 years away, but 3 years away.
Well, even closer, John, that makes me think, I know there's some plans already in the work, but next year is the anniversary of the bridge between Oregon City and West Linn is the 100th
Yes.
anniversary in
Oh,
2022.
yeah.
I don't know if we as a board have to do anything, but the city I know is doing some, I've heard some conversations. I don't think anything's being done yet.
No.
Um,
I've heard there are some plans out there to sort of celebrate the bridge and maybe some coordination with historic City Hall. So I can follow up in January on that. So, but I believe the birthday of the bridge is not being ignored. So,
And just for record, it's a horrible time of year. It opened in December. So if they're going to do any kind of like bridge walk or any celebration, it's going to be, hopefully we'll do it this summer. We'll move it up and make it in the summer, not in December. But yeah, so December
maybe
20th.
early birthday.
Yeah, do an early birthday. Any other items from the board? John, any items from staff?
A couple things here. The food cart application will not be appearing in before you in January. It was just a couple matter of timing. Plus, there's some stormwater issues we're working with them on. So it's just a matter whenever you, even though the site's 100% paved, whenever you add or replace more than 1,000 square feet of hard surface, detention and treatment kicks in. So we're just kind of working with them on addressing that. And we're doing it now rather than at the tail end of construction documents to make sure that what's presented to you and the planning commission is as close as possible to what's actually going to be built. So I think they're going to try and maybe add some stormwater planters to deal with some of that, but remains to be seen. So probably February is when you'll be reviewing the food cart pod. We also had a pre-application meeting for the quote bungalow next to the cider house. They're looking at doing an addition on the back. Tom Watton was present at the pre-app as well. They're open to the public, so he was there, and he can report back at the next meeting on his thoughts. But if you all pre-application applications are posted to the city website. So if you're curious what was presented to the city, you can see it there. In conversations with them, the sketch they provided is a little larger than what they were actually imagining. So it looks a little more monolithic and boxy than what they were actually hoping to do. So it was more of a conversation tool, but it sounds like their intent is to do something sort of coherent with the building. And so keep it a little bit lower and make sure it doesn't overpower the home. At the same time, there were conversations about context as well, is that we have a bungalow with the cider house wrapping around on two sides and potentially a 2-story brand new office building on the other. So that context came up in the conversation. So this is something the project architect is going to have to work through in terms of that. But just so you know, that's in play potentially. And I think that's really about it for now. Oh, the Historic City Hall renovation may be coming in the near future as well. From talking to Iceland Architects, they are currently working on the application, and I have some emails from them with questions as well. So that is also on the likely to be on your docket this in 2022. So I think you're going to go from one quasi judicial hearing to probably half a dozen at this rate. So just buckle in. So
It's classic, be careful what you wish for.
exactly. Correct. So so I think that's all I have at this point. So
Good. So our next meeting then I have down for January 18th.
let me confirm that. Sounds about
And
right.
is that hybrid? Is that virtual? Is that yet to be determined to see how Omicron does? Or
So Omicron aside, we have hybrid meeting. So it is the meeting is scheduled for the 18th. Hybrid protocols are still being worked out. There is going to be a training. Let's see here. I believe it's next month.
It was the CAG training, right? Was that January
Correct.
26th or 7th?
Let's see.
that's the 25th.
25th.
Yeah.
So it's the
25th.
week after. So there is that. I know Omicron is changing expectations all over the place. But for now, CAG training is the 18th. I will clarify, at the next in the agenda, in the next agenda that goes out, what the format's going to be. But I think things are still a little bit in progress. But I would anticipate a hybrid meeting. So and for those of you that want to attend in person. So.
And John, do you know when our state of Oregon disclosures are due? I know we always have to do that conflict of interest thing every year.
We were talking about that. I don't recall when they're due offhand, so I will confirm for you.
But we should just remind staff, board members that does have to get done, because I know during COVID I forgot. So
yeah. So
actually I said I thought I had just done that. I had, but it's just been a year before. So
well, I'm sure we'll talk about it on the 25th as well. So it's
okay.
Yeah. I know that I remember talking to the city recorder about this. I don't recall the date though. So
Okay. I know it's always the beginning of the year. So all right. So then unless there's anything else, we've got our next meeting on January 18th, and that'll be TBD on virtual or in person, but
both.
I think, or both, or hybrid, or
Both
whatever. Yeah.
hybrid. So yeah, so so I believe we will continue to stream to YouTube for those who want to just watch, and then people will be able to attend in person or log in through WebEx. So we have all kinds of avenues to participate. Yeah.
So we should do our pitch for subscribe and like, and every time we're on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can
subscribe button.
I'm not sure we can monetize it, but yeah.
Right, yeah. You can follow the HRB, subscribe and like it.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, my kids watch way too much YouTube. That's all I ever hear are those YouTubers. Yeah. Okay, so I think we're adjourned. Then it's 8:12 p.m. We can adjourn.
Okay. Great.
Excellent.
You
Everyone have
Awesome.
holidays.
Gentlemen, have a Merry Christmas.
See you next year.
Thanks everyone. See you next year.
Okay.
Take care.
And John, I'll wait for that letter from you. Just
Okay.
get approval, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to try and send it out tonight before I go home, since it's pretty close to being done.
Okay. Yeah, I may not get to it till tomorrow, but as soon as
It's okay. I want it done from my end.
Okay.
So, cool.
I'll get back to you. Give me at least and if you don't hear from me for within 24 hours, please bug me. Just in
Okay.
case it got lost.
Okay. Well, just so you know, I'm in tomorrow, and then I'm out Thursday and Monday. I'm sorry. I'm out. Thursday and Monday, and the offices are closed on Friday. So really, it's tomorrow or next Tuesday. So
Okay, I'll try to get to it tomorrow. I got a fairly busy work schedule
Okay.
tomorrow, but if not, ping me on Monday just to remind me.
Okay, I can do that.
I'm just looking at myself. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I got a
Okay,
horrible.
because I'm not back till Tuesday, but I can drop you a note. So.